AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she insulted my husband in front of our family. I, 32F, have always been close with my younger sister, Megan, 28F, but over the last couple of years, things have gotten tense. A little backstory. My husband, Ryan, 35M, and I have been married for 5 years. He's an introverted, extremely kind, and hardworking guy who prefers smaller gatherings over big social events. Megan, on the other hand, has always been the life of the party and enjoys being the center of attention. Our personalities clash in subtle ways, but I've always tried to keep the peace. Megan got engaged last year, and from the start, she insisted that my husband and I host her wedding at our house. We have a decently large home with a spacious backyard and a pool area that could accommodate around 150 people comfortably. I hesitated at first because hosting a wedding is a huge responsibility. Logistics, catering, cleaning, decorations, not to mention the emotional labor. But Megan has always been dramatic, and I felt like refusing could trigger a meltdown. So, I agreed, telling myself I would find a way to make it work. From the start, things were stressful. Megan had very specific ideas about everything. Table settings, flowers, food, music, lighting, you name it. And she expected me to handle all of it. I was willing to help, but I made it clear that hiring vendors for certain things would be necessary because it was physically impossible for me to manage everything while working full-time. Megan didn't like that at all and would complain about my lack of commitment whenever I suggested delegating tasks. 2 weeks before the wedding, Megan came over with her fiancé, Tom, 30M, to discuss the final guest list. My husband was there because I asked him to help with the seating chart, something he is actually good at since he's very organized. Everything seemed fine until Megan started questioning Ryan about the guest list. She asked in a condescending tone why we were inviting so many of our boring relatives who don't even care about the wedding, and whether he thought it was necessary to let them eat at our expense. Ryan looked taken aback, and I immediately jumped in to defend him, telling Megan that her comment was rude and unnecessary. Megan, however, doubled down. She said, "I just don't understand how you married someone so bland. Ryan's nice and all, but he's not exactly exciting, is he?" Then she laughed. I froze. I cannot believe my own sister just openly insulted my husband in our home, in front of family. My parents were there too, and the room went silent. Ryan, who usually avoids conflict, was quietly fuming. He didn't say anything, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. I immediately told Megan and Tom that if they were going to treat my husband this way, they could figure out their wedding somewhere else. Megan rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, come on, it was just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." I tried to explain that, joking or not, it was humiliating and uncalled for. She shrugged and said, "You always take everything so seriously. Maybe Ryan does too, but honestly, it's your fault for marrying a guy who can't take a joke." That was the last straw. I told her I could no longer host the wedding. I even offered to help them find another venue, but she refused. She started sending me passive-aggressive texts and emails, accusing me of being selfish, controlling, and jealous because I didn't want her wedding at my house anymore. She said that Ryan was being ridiculous and that I was letting him ruin the most important day of her life. I decided to take a step back. I blocked her on social media for a few days to avoid constant drama. Ryan and I had a long conversation, and he told me that he didn't expect to be insulted at what was supposed to be a happy family event. He said he wasn't upset with me, but he appreciated that I stood up for him. Eventually, Megan went ahead and booked a hotel ballroom for the wedding. She invited most of the same guests, and while the wedding itself went off without major issues, the tension between us is still palpable. Our parents tried to mediate, telling me that I should let it go and forgive her for being a little mean. But I feel like what she said crossed a line. I love my sister, but I also love my husband, and I don't want him to be treated like that ever again. Since then, Megan has made a few passive-aggressive comments whenever we talk, like, "Well, at least your house wasn't ruined for my special day," and "I guess not everyone can be as fun as me." I've tried to ignore her, but it stings because I feel like I did the right thing by defending Ryan and refusing to host a wedding in a hostile environment. I'm starting to wonder if I overreacted. Some people have told me I should have just let her make jokes and hosted the wedding anyway, saying that family drama is normal and that I was ruining her big day by refusing. But honestly, I can't imagine being okay with someone insulting my spouse in front of our family and then expecting me to accommodate their plans. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she insulted my husband in front of everyone. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she got divorced. I, 32F, have always had a fairly structured life. I live alone in a small city apartment, have a stable job as a marketing manager, and my routine is very important to me. I like order, quiet, and planning my life ahead. I also have a very close relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 28F, though we have very different personalities. She's outgoing, spontaneous, and tends to make impulsive decisions without considering long-term consequences. Growing up, our parents often had to mediate between us because I was more serious and cautious, while Emily would act first and think later. Over time, we become adults who respect each other's differences, though occasional tension is inevitable. About 2 months ago, Emily called me in a panic. She and her husband of 5 years had separated suddenly. She told me she had no one else to turn to and asked if she could stay at my apartment for a while until she got back on her feet. I was caught off guard. While I care about my sister, my apartment is tiny, barely enough for me. I also knew her staying with me would drastically disrupt my routine. I tried to explain that I couldn't accommodate her for an indefinite period because I work long hours and have commitments that require a quiet environment. Emily got upset, but seemed to understand at the time. However, a week later, she showed up at my apartment with 2 suitcases and said she had booked a flight but hadn't confirmed her place yet, and she needed somewhere to stay immediately. She seemed flustered and desperate, and I could see that she was emotionally fragile. I agreed to let her stay, but only for a few nights, insisting that she needed to start looking for her own place right away. She cried and promised she would start looking immediately. I tried to be supportive, helping her research apartments, and even suggesting a couple of temporary sublets that were affordable. Within days, Emily started to settle in like she was going to live there indefinitely. She rearranged my furniture without asking, borrowed dishes without returning them, and started inviting friends over late at night. I work from home a couple of days a week, and the noise made it almost impossible to focus. When I asked her to tone it down, she said she was stressed and needed comfort. I explained that I was trying to help, but I also had my own life and responsibilities. Things started to feel tense. About a week after she moved in, I asked her again to finalize her housing plans. She said she was still figuring things out and asked if she could stay another week. I told her no. I explained that while I loved her and wanted to support her, my apartment was not a long-term solution. She reacted badly. She accused me of being cold, unsympathetic, and selfish. I tried to reason with her, saying I could help her financially if needed, like giving a deposit for a rental or helping her find a roommate, but I could not let her live with me indefinitely. She stormed out and spent a few nights at a friend's place, but came back the following weekend, saying her friend kicked her out because she had work obligations. At this point, I started setting strict boundaries. I told her that if she wanted to stay, she would need to respect my space and schedule. No rearranging furniture, no loud gatherings, and she needed to pay for groceries she consumed. Emily refused, saying that she shouldn't have to pay me since I was her sister and she was in crisis. I told her that helping someone in crisis doesn't mean letting them take over your home. She started to throw guilt at me, saying I was family but acting like a stranger. Things came to a head 2 weeks ago. I had an important project deadline and needed complete focus. Emily decided to throw a small get-together in my apartment while I was at work. I came back to find 6 people in my living room, drinking and laughing loudly. My laptop and notes were sitting on a coffee table, and some of my papers had been used for notes or doodles. I was furious. I told everyone to leave immediately and confronted Emily. She yelled at me, saying I was ruining her life by being rigid and unkind. I stayed calm and told her she had to leave. She refused, claiming she had nowhere else to go. I ended up calling a friend of mine who offered her a temporary room for a few days, just to remove the immediate tension. Emily packed her things and left, but she has not spoken to me since except for angry texts. She's telling our family that I abandoned her when she needed me most. Some relatives are on her side, saying I should have let her stay until she got back on her feet, while others understand my perspective and support me for maintaining boundaries. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I love my sister and hate that she's going through a rough time. On the other hand, my home is my sanctuary, and I can't sacrifice my mental health and stability to accommodate her indefinitely. I try to help in ways that didn't compromise my own life, but she seems to see it as rejection. AITA for refusing to let my sister live with me permanently after her divorce. If you want, I can also create a second story in the same style that hits exactly 7,000 characters with even more tension, drama, and twists, read at popular level. It would feel like a classic viral AITA saga. Do you want me to do that? AITA for telling my sister that she ruined my wedding and my relationship with my family? So, this is going to be a long one, and I'm not proud of all of it, but I need to get it off my chest. I, 28F, recently got married to my fiancé, Jake, 30M, and I feel like my sister, Emily, 26F, completely hijacked everything I'd hoped for. I honestly don't know if I'm overreacting, which is why I'm posting here. A little background. Emily and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was always the golden child. Teachers loved her, relatives adored her, and I was always in her shadow. I've been aware of it for most of my life, but I genuinely thought we had a decent adult relationship. We talked, hung out occasionally, and she had her friends, I had mine. Jake and I got engaged about a year ago, and I told Emily early because I thought she would be happy. She seemed excited at first, which I appreciated. Fast forward to wedding planning. I had a fairly traditional vision, smallish ceremony, mostly family and close friends, simple but elegant. I spent months booking the venue, arranging decorations, and picking out the menu. I even compromised on a few things because Emily insisted she had better taste or that certain choices were too boring or not Instagrammable enough. I tried to keep her happy without letting her take control. As the wedding approached, Emily's behavior got more intense. She started sending me constant messages about what I should wear, how the wedding party should look, and even the seating arrangements. I tried to politely say that I appreciated her input, but wanted to make the decisions myself. That's when things really went downhill. A week before the wedding, she called me crying, saying that she felt left out and that the wedding wouldn't feel special without her in the spotlight. I tried to reassure her, telling her that she was my sister and would absolutely have her role, but she said it wasn't enough. She then started sending messages to our parents, my in-laws, and even some friends, complaining about how unappreciated she felt. I asked her to stop, explaining that the stress of the wedding was already overwhelming. She promised she would, but didn't. The day of the wedding arrived. Everything was going mostly according to plan until Emily decided she wanted to give a toast. Normally, this would be fine, but she hadn't told me she was planning anything and was visibly upset when I said the time slot was reserved for someone else. She grabbed the microphone anyway, and instead of a heartfelt message, she made it all about herself. She recounted every childhood memory where she had sacrificed for me, talked about how she deserved the wedding too, and even implied that I hadn't included her properly in planning. Guests were shifting uncomfortably in their seats, and I was mortified. Jake had to step in, trying to cut her off without making a scene, but the damage was done. After the toast, Emily stormed out and refused to come back for the reception dinner. Our parents tried to calm her down, but she left, leaving me crying in the bathroom for a solid 20 minutes before I pulled myself together to finish the night. The reception was tense and awkward, with whispers among guests about what had happened. Jake and I tried to focus on each other, but I could feel the shadow of Emily's outburst over the entire night. The next day, my parents called me. They said that Emily was devastated and felt betrayed by me. They suggested that I reach out and apologize for not considering her feelings enough. I explained that I did consider her feelings, but she had gone overboard and disrupted the entire wedding. My parents seemed to think I was being unreasonable, which hurt because I'd spent months planning something I thought would be a joyful family event. Emily hasn't spoken to me since the wedding. My parents are disappointed in me, and even some of my cousins are side-eyeing me when we talk. I feel like I did what I had to do to protect my wedding, my relationship with Jake, and my own sanity. But I also feel guilty because I know she feels hurt. I tried to include her, I really did, but she made it about herself in a way that was completely inappropriate. I've thought a lot about this and can't tell if I'm the asshole. Should I have handled it differently? Should I have let her have the toast, even if it was disruptive? Or was I right to put boundaries around the wedding and my special day? I don't want to destroy my relationship with my sister forever, but I also don't regret defending my wedding. AITA for telling my sister that she ruined my wedding and for refusing to apologize for her behavior. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what she did to my wedding. I've 32F, been married to my husband, Alex, 34M, for 5 years now. Our wedding wasn't extravagant, but it was important to us. We wanted a small ceremony with close friends and family, but we also wanted certain elements that mattered to us, like a live band and a specific venue. I come from a family that is very involved in each other's lives, and I always assumed my sister, Lily, 30F, would be supportive. She has always been the type to have a strong opinion, and we don't always see eye to eye, but I thought she would understand the importance of certain things for my big day. The problem began during the planning stages. My parents were contributing financially, and so was my sister in the form of helping with decorations and some minor planning. From the start, she kept undermining my choices. She insisted the color scheme was all wrong and that my dress was too traditional. When I explained that I had already paid deposits and wanted to stick with my choices, she rolled her eyes and muttered that it was a waste of money. I brushed it off because I didn't want to start unnecessary drama. A month before the wedding, she announced she had a better idea for the ceremony. She wanted to change the seating arrangement because it would look nicer in photos and demanded to have her friends in the front row instead of my parents' closest friends. I told her this wasn't going to happen, but she went behind my back and tried to convince my parents to agree. My parents didn't say much, but quietly let me handle it, which I appreciated. I thought that was the end of it. But on the day of the wedding, things escalated. She showed up with a group of her friends and immediately started taking over. She rearranged the flowers, moved chairs, and insisted the DJ play a song that she said was essential for ambience, even though it wasn't on our playlist. I tried to stay calm and politely tell her stop, but she argued that it was her day too because she was in the wedding party. She even grabbed my bouquet for a few minutes to fix it, which I didn't notice until halfway through the ceremony photos. I was mortified. Alex had to intervene to get her to step back. During the reception, it got worse. She made a speech that wasn't planned. She started by saying she was thrilled for me, but then spent 10 minutes talking about how she had helped shape the wedding and saved it from being boring, and criticizing some of the food choices. Several guests awkwardly looked around, unsure of how to react, and my parents tried to cut her off politely, but she finished her rant and even demanded a toast from the best man to agree with her. I was so embarrassed I wanted to disappear. After the wedding, I was hurt and angry. I couldn't believe my own sister would behave that way, and I felt humiliated in front of everyone. I spoke to her about it, expecting at least an apology, but she doubled down. She claimed that she was just making sure the wedding was memorable and that I was overreacting for being upset. My parents tried to mediate, saying maybe I should let it go, but I couldn't. I stopped talking to her for a few months. Fast forward to now, Lily is getting married. She asked me to be a bridesmaid, and I initially said yes because I didn't want to hold grudges and I wanted to support her. But over time, the more I think about her behavior at my wedding, the more uneasy I feel. My fiancé and I discussed it, and he agreed that it wasn't unreasonable to feel uncomfortable given the past. I tried talking to her again about boundaries, explaining that I expect her to respect the plans and not take over, but she laughed it off and said I was too sensitive and that she's just excited and loves weddings. Her wedding is in 2 months. She's already sending me detailed plans, asking me for input on everything, and reminding me of my role as a bridesmaid in a way that makes me feel like I'm being coerced into approving her ideas. I've told her that I won't participate if she can't respect boundaries, but she accused me of holding a grudge and ruining family harmony. My parents are caught in the middle and are upset with me for considering skipping the wedding. I finally decided to tell her that I wouldn't be attending her wedding. I explained that I can't be part of an event where I feel I will be disrespected and that it's too emotionally taxing for me to participate after what happened at my own wedding. She lost it and accused me of being selfish and petty. She even said that I'm making her wedding about me when I insist that I just want to protect myself from being humiliated again. Some extended family members have been contacting me, saying that I should go to support family, and that Lily is being dramatic, but I feel torn. I genuinely don't want to attend because I'm still hurt by her previous behavior, but I also don't want to appear vindictive or cause more family tension. I've considered sending a gift and a card instead, but I haven't done that yet. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she acted at my own. I feel like my feelings are valid, but part of me worries that I'm overreacting and should just put it aside for the sake of family. Character count, 6,468 if you want. I can also make an even longer, more detailed version closer to 7,000 characters with extra subplots about family dynamics and wedding mishaps to make it feel ultra-popular Reddit style. Do you want me to do that? AITA for not letting my sister bring her kid to my wedding, even though it upset my parents? So, I, 29F, am getting married in a few months. My fiancé, Alex, 31M, and I've been planning this for over a year, and we've been very deliberate about keeping the wedding relatively small. We're capping the guest list at about 80 people because the venue we love is intimate, and we wanted to feel personal. Both of us have big families, so narrowing it down was difficult, but we managed. Here's the situation. My younger sister, Maya, 25F, has a 3-year-old, Leo. She has always been a bit unpredictable with planning, often leaving things until the last minute, and she has a very demanding job. I love Leo, he's adorable, but I also know he doesn't travel well. He gets overwhelmed easily, and he can be loud and disruptive, especially in new environments. When we were finalizing the guest list, I told Maya that we were doing an adults-only wedding. I didn't want it to feel exclusionary, but I also wanted it to be manageable, especially since we're having a small ceremony, cocktail hour, and seated dinner. She seemed a little bummed, but said she understood. Fast forward 2 months, Maya calls me out of the blue, saying she can't find anyone to babysit Leo for the day of the wedding. She insists that it's unfair for her to miss her sister's wedding, and she expects that Leo can come. I tried explaining that we planned this as adults only for practical reasons, and adding a toddler would create a lot of stress and potential chaos. She got upset, claiming that my wedding should be about family, not rules. I offered a compromise. I would pay for a nearby hotel babysitter for the evening so she could attend without worrying about him, and I even offered to pick him up and take him back if she wanted to have dinner and the reception worry-free. She said it wasn't the same and that she couldn't just leave her child with a stranger. I understand that, but I can't invite a 3-year-old into a venue with fragile decor, a live band, and a mostly adult guest list. When I told our parents, they flipped out. They said I was being unreasonable and cruel to my sister, and that this is a milestone she should experience with her child. My mom even said that this could cause a permanent rift between siblings. My dad suggested that maybe I should let her bring him, saying it's only one day, and it would make everyone happy. I tried reasoning again, explaining that it's a safety and logistics issue. Our wedding planner also supports us, saying that managing children in a formal, small wedding setting is extremely difficult. The venue itself also has a rule against unattended children under 5, which complicates things further. Maya started texting me constantly, guilt-tripping me with messages like, "I guess my kid doesn't matter to you. This isn't just about you and Alex. It's family, and if you love me, you'll make an exception." I feel awful that she's upset, but I also feel that the responsibility of including a toddler in an adults-only event is unfair to us and the other guests. Some friends I've spoken to say I'm right to stick to our boundaries, but others are saying I'm being heartless. I really don't want to start my marriage with a fight between my family and me, But I also don't want to risk a meltdown during the wedding because a 3-year-old is having a tantrum. At this point, Maya has threatened to boycott the wedding entirely if Leo can't come, and our parents are pressuring us to relent. My fiancé is fully on my side, saying he doesn't want to deal with the stress, but he also worries about how this will affect family relationships long-term. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister bring her toddler to my wedding, even though it's causing tension with my parents and her. I want my wedding to be joyful and stress-free, and I also want to respect my own boundaries, but I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm being selfish. I've considered maybe rescheduling or having a kid-friendly side event, but the venue is already booked, and I don't think there's a feasible way to make it work. I feel stuck between enforcing a rule that's important to us and trying to keep the peace with family. I really need an honest perspective. AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after she ignored my warnings about her guest list. I, 32F, have always been close with my sister, Emma, 30F. We grew up in a small town, our parents are divorced, and I've always been the one who stayed in touch with everyone. I recently bought a house after years of renting, and it's exactly what I wanted, a small but cozy place in the suburbs with a backyard I've been dreaming about for years. When Emma got engaged 6 months ago, she immediately asked if she could have her wedding at my place. At first, I was thrilled. It seemed like a fun idea to host a small, intimate wedding for family and a few close friends. I told her yes, under the assumption that it would be a very small event. I was clear from the start. I wanted the guest list to be no more than 20 people. My house isn't big, and my backyard isn't equipped to handle a large crowd. I even told her she could have the ceremony outside and a few tables for dinner, but that was it. She said she understood and promised to respect my wishes. Fast forward 2 months, and I start hearing murmurs from mutual friends. Emma has invited over 50 people. She says it's just a few more, but keeps adding names. I try to bring it up gently, reminding her of our agreement. Her response was that my house is perfect, and it would be a shame not to invite everyone she loves. I told her firmly that I cannot host that many people and that my insurance won't cover accidents with such a large gathering. She got visibly upset, accused me of being selfish, and told me I was ruining her dream wedding. Things escalated when she sent me a full Google Doc with the guest list and seating arrangements. It included extended family I barely know, her coworkers, and some of her high school friends I've never met. At that point, I told her no. I explained again that my house cannot accommodate 50 people and that I had made my limits clear from the beginning. Emma screamed at me over the phone, saying I was being controlling and petty. She threatened to call our parents to pressure me. I decided to talk to our parents to try to mediate, but it didn't help. Our mom sided with Emma, saying it was my responsibility as a sister to make her wedding special and that I was being unreasonable. My dad was more neutral, but suggested I might need to compromise. I still refused. I offered alternatives. I could help her find a nearby park or rent a small hall that could accommodate everyone safely. She refused all alternatives, saying they weren't the same as having it at my house. The final straw came last week when she told me she was moving forward with her plans regardless and expected me to just deal with it. I realized she had no intention of respecting my house or my boundaries, so I formally told her that the wedding could not be held at my home under any circumstances. I even offered to pay for a portion of a venue rental if that would help her feel supported. She exploded, calling me a terrible sister and saying I was selfish and cruel. After that, our relationship has become tense. She barely talks to me, only sends passive-aggressive texts, and keeps trying to guilt me by saying, "I thought you loved me enough to help make my dream come true." I keep telling myself I set boundaries early, and it's not unreasonable to say no when my property and comfort are at stake. Our parents are now angry at me too, and I feel like I'm being punished for standing my ground. I even offered to help in other ways, like helping her with decorations, planning, or even covering part of the catering, but nothing seems to matter. She only cares about having the wedding at my house. A few friends have told me I'm right to stick to my guns, but others say I'm being overly rigid and should make sacrifices for family. I feel stuck because I don't want to ruin my relationship with Emma permanently, but at the same time, I cannot compromise my home and peace for something that was clearly going to be out of control. It's been stressful, and I'm losing sleep over how angry our family has become at me. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister use my house for her wedding after she ignored my clear limits. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she caused a huge financial mess. I, 29F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I grew up in a household where my parents instilled the importance of budgeting, saving, and planning for the future. My younger sister, Emma, 26F, on the other hand, has always been the free spirit. She's smart, creative, and fun to be around, but financially she has always been a mess. She has a habit of maxing out credit cards, making impulsive purchases, and living paycheck to paycheck without a care for savings. I bought my first apartment when I was 25, a modest but cozy place that I work hard to save for. Emma, meanwhile, moved around a lot, often crashing with friends or bouncing between short-term rentals. Our relationship has always been close, but money has been a source of tension between us. Last year, my parents had a serious medical emergency that forced them into temporary assisted living. During that time, Emma's lease ended, and she asked if she could stay with me for a few months until I get back on my feet. I hesitated, but eventually agreed, thinking a few months wouldn't be a big deal. At first, it seemed fine. She helped around the house, and I tried to be supportive. But soon, things started to unravel. Emma was late with rent payments for her half of utilities, which I reluctantly covered. She brought home friends and started hosting parties without asking me. I discovered she had applied for a small personal loan and used my address, something I had explicitly told her not to do. When I confronted her, she brushed it off and said I was overreacting. The breaking point came when I received a notice that her unpaid utility bills from before she moved in were being sent to my apartment. She hadn't informed me that her previous landlord had already started collections. I had to spend days on the phone explaining that these were not my debts, and it was a huge headache. On top of that, she was spending a lot on things I couldn't afford, like ordering expensive groceries and takeout, and she expected me to cover the difference. I sat her down and told her that this arrangement was no longer working. I explained that I could not continue to cover her expenses or be responsible for her financial mistakes. I gave her a deadline to find another place within a month. She broke down and accused me of being selfish and uncaring. She said I was abandoning her in a time of need, which hurt because I had genuinely tried to help her initially. Emma reached out to our parents for support. They sided with her, saying I should be more understanding and family should help each other. I tried to explain the situation, but they argued that I was being too strict and didn't appreciate the stress Emma had been under. Our family dynamic has always been a little messy, but this time it felt personal. After a few weeks of tense conversations, I stuck to my decision. Emma finally found a small studio in another part of the city. When she moved out, she left behind a mess, dirty dishes, stains on the carpet, an unpaid bill she had promised to settle, but didn't. I had to spend extra money to clean up and fix damages. I told my parents about this, and they were disappointed with me for not handling it more gracefully, but I felt relieved once she was gone. Since then, our relationship has been strained. Emma texts me occasionally, but it's polite and distant. She has made some passive-aggressive comments about how I don't care about family when I mention finances or bills. I've been trying to maintain boundaries because I realized that letting her move in was a mistake that almost ruined my financial stability. I even considered cutting contact for a while, but I don't want to completely sever ties. My friends say I did the right thing because I was being responsible and protecting myself. However, my parents and some extended family think I overreacted and should have found a compromise. I feel guilty sometimes because I know Emma was in a rough spot and I didn't want to see her struggling, but at the same time, I can't ignore how much stress and damage her stay caused. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she caused a huge financial mess. The story explores family dynamics, financial responsibility, and difficult boundaries while keeping the tone and structure of a popular AITA post. If you want, I can also make an even longer version closer to the 7,000 character maximum, adding more dialogue, internal conflict, and detailed scenes to make it feel very authentic and Reddit viral. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she insisted on a massive family contribution. I, 28F, have always been close with my older sister, Emily, 32F, but recently things have escalated in ways I never expected. Emily has been dating her fiancé, Jason, 33M, for about 5 years, and they recently got engaged. From the start, Emily made it very clear that she wanted a traditional, lavish wedding, the kind you see in magazines. At first, I was excited for her, but I quickly realized she had a very specific vision that involved heavy financial input from our family, especially for me. Here's the breakdown. Our family is middle class. Our parents are retired, and while they can contribute a bit, they aren't looking to finance a wedding entirely. Emily has always had a certain expectation of luxury, so she set the tone early. She sat me down and said she expected me to cover certain family expenses, which include my own travel and accommodation for the destination wedding. Not unreasonable, I thought. A bridesmaid dress, okay. Hair and makeup, fine, though pricey, and an additional family contribution of $2,000 toward the overall wedding costs. She made it very clear that this was non-negotiable if I wanted to be part of the wedding. At first, I tried to reason with her. I explained that $2,000 on top of everything else was simply beyond my means. I'm not broke, but I live paycheck to paycheck and have a modest savings account for emergencies. I offered to contribute what I could, helping with DIY decorations, taking charge of the playlist, and organizing some other smaller costs. Emily was dismissive, saying that it was not enough and that the family contribution was standard for families who loved each other and wanted to support a big wedding. I argued that loving someone didn't require an arbitrary $2,000 payment, and this wasn't something I was comfortable doing. Emily's response was harsh. She accused me of being selfish, unsupportive, and ungrateful, pointing out that our cousin had paid similar contributions last year and had no issues. I brought up that my cousin is in a very different financial situation. They make almost double my salary and didn't have the same expenses, so I couldn't compare. She called me jealous and said I was ruining the family harmony. At this point, I realized that any conversation with her about money was going nowhere. The tension escalated when our parents got involved. They tried to mediate, suggesting that I pay a smaller amount, or that they could cover some of the shortfall. Emily refused and insisted that I pay the full $2,000. My parents were frustrated, but didn't want to escalate things further. I told them I simply couldn't justify spending that much on someone else's wedding, no matter how much I love Emily. I also reminded them that my contributions in other ways, time, planning, and emotional support, were valuable. Emily reacted by cutting me out of wedding planning entirely. She informed me that I was no longer a bridesmaid and that I would not be welcome in the wedding party. I told her that was fine. I was more concerned about not overextending myself financially than being in a group of people in matching dresses. She then told our extended family that I refused to support her wedding, which led to a series of uncomfortable messages from relatives. Most of them were polite, but a few criticized me for being cheap or cold. Things got worse when Jason's family entered the picture. They assumed I would pay because Emily had already framed it as a family obligation. Jason's mom subtly suggested that I must not care about Emily if I wasn't helping, and my own guilt started creeping in. I even considered borrowing money, but I realized that doing so would put me in real financial trouble for months. I had to remind myself that I am not responsible for funding someone else's dream, no matter how close we are. I have since spoken to Emily a few times, trying to maintain a relationship. Each time, she becomes increasingly hostile and accusatory. She refuses to acknowledge my boundaries and insists that my refusal is a personal attack. I feel like I've lost my sister in the process, and it's incredibly painful. My parents are disappointed, but understand my reasoning. Some friends have supported me, saying that financial abuse disguised as family expectations is not something I should tolerate. Here's the kicker. Emily's wedding is happening next summer, and I have no plans to attend if she continues this behavior. I worry about family dynamics and whether I'll ever repair my relationship with her. I also worry that other family members might turn against me or view me as unsupportive. On the other hand, I feel like giving in would create resentment and could damage my financial stability. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay a $2,000 family contribution for my sister's wedding. Despite her insistence and our family pressure, I feel like I'm being reasonable, but the guilt is eating at me, and I'm not sure if I'm missing something. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister involve my daughter in a family tradition she knows my daughter isn't ready for. I'm a 32-year-old single mom to my 7-year-old daughter, Emily. My sister, Jessica, is 35 and has 2 kids of her own, ages 10 and 12. Our family has a tradition that goes back generations, something I'll refer to as the ceremony for privacy reasons. Basically, it's a yearly gathering that involves some very specific and intense rituals, some of which can be emotionally overwhelming, especially for younger kids. When I was Emily's age, I participated because my mom and Jessica's mom were insistent, but looking back, I honestly think it was too much for me at that age. Emily has always been a sensitive child. She's extremely empathetic and tends to absorb the emotions of those around her. She also gets very anxious in large groups and can shut down when she feels overwhelmed. I've been very careful about exposing her to situations that might be emotionally stressful because I want her to enjoy things without unnecessary pressure. This year, Jessica invited us to the ceremony and told me she'd already signed Emily up for one of the main rituals. I was shocked because I hadn't even discussed it with her and I hadn't thought Emily was ready. I explained to Jessica that Emily's temperament is different from ours and that I didn't feel she should be pressured into participating in something that could really stress her out. Jessica brushed it off, saying Emily needs to learn family values and that she'd grow stronger if she participated. She even said that I was being overprotective and that my daughter should just toughen up. I told her no. I offered an alternative. Emily could attend the gathering but not participate in the ritual. She could watch from a safe distance or do a quiet activity elsewhere while everyone else participated. I thought this was a fair compromise. Jessica, however, blew up. She accused me of holding Emily back and said that I was ruining the tradition for everyone else. She also implied that my parenting style is making Emily weak. She got so loud on the phone that our mom had to step in and tell her to calm down. Jessica's children are older and more accustomed to the ritual. She said that Emily's absence would make her kids feel awkward and that everyone would be disappointed if Emily didn't take part. I told her I understand that, but Emily's mental well-being comes first. I reminded her that forcing a child into an experience they aren't ready for can have lasting negative effects, and that Emily is allowed to participate at her own pace. The day of the ceremony came, and Emily attended but did not participate in the ritual. She had a great time doing crafts, watching the ceremony, and spending time with her cousins. She was happy and relaxed. On the way home, she even told me she was glad she didn't have to do the ritual because it seemed scary and overwhelming. Seeing her so content made me feel certain I did the right thing. Afterward, Jessica sent me a long text. She said she felt I had shamed Emily by letting her skip the ritual and that I had ruined the family experience. She also brought up that our mom was disappointed in me for not pushing Emily to participate. I replied calmly, explaining that I value family traditions, but I also have to prioritize Emily's emotional health, and that she will have plenty of opportunities to participate when she feels ready. Jessica hasn't spoken to me since, aside from curt responses to texts about logistics for next year's gathering. Our extended family is split. Some think I did the right thing, emphasizing that children shouldn't be forced into emotionally taxing traditions. Others say I should have pushed Emily a bit more, or at least compromise further, so that everyone else wouldn't feel disappointed. I feel torn because I want Emily to feel included in our family traditions, but I also don't want to force her into something she's not ready for. AITA for refusing to let my sister involve my daughter in the ritual, even though it upset her and the rest of the family. AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she excluded me from planning. I, 28F, have always been close with my older sister, Emma, 32F. Growing up, we were practically inseparable. Our personalities are different. I'm more introverted and thoughtful, while she's outgoing and dramatic, but I always try to support her in every way possible. Our parents divorced when I was a teenager, and while I stayed living with our mom, Emma lived with our dad. Despite that, we stayed close and made a point to maintain our relationship. About a year ago, Emma got engaged to her fiancé, Tom, 34M. Initially, I was thrilled for her. I imagined us planning the wedding together, sharing ideas, picking flowers, and maybe even helping with the speeches. I knew she was a little more high-strung than me, but I figured I could handle it. I started brainstorming in my head about possible venues, dresses, themes, and even entertainment. I thought it would be a fun bonding experience. When Emma announced the wedding, I immediately asked if she wanted to meet and talk about ideas. That's when things started to go sideways. She told me, very firmly, that she had already hired a wedding planner and didn't want input from family at all. She said she and Tom wanted it to be completely their vision and didn't want me or anyone else involved in decisions. I tried to be understanding, told her I respected that, and asked if there were any ways I could help. She said no, she didn't need help with planning or finances and just wanted me to attend and enjoy. I was disappointed, but told myself I could still be happy for her. Fast forward to a few months later, Emma called me and asked if I could contribute to the wedding costs. I was caught off guard because she had already hired the planner, booked the venue, and even finalized the catering and guest list. She said she needed help covering the photographer, flowers, and some miscellaneous costs. I told her I didn't feel comfortable paying for things I had no input on, especially since she specifically excluded me from any planning. I explained that I wanted to contribute in some way, but I didn't think it was fair to pay for something I couldn't influence or help design. She got really upset and accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. She said that since I'm her sister, I should naturally want to help make her wedding amazing, regardless of whether I'm involved in the planning. I tried to explain that my support isn't measured by money, and I've been excited and happy for her in every way I can. I've offered to help with decorations on the day, organize the seating chart if she wants advice, or even run errands, but she insists money is the only way I can show love. Our parents tried to mediate, saying I should at least contribute a small amount to avoid tension. I offered to pay for my own dress, travel, and hotel, and maybe even a small wedding gift, but I told them I'm not comfortable funding parts of the wedding I had no say in. Emma hasn't spoken to me in weeks. Our mom says I'm being unreasonable and selfish, but I feel like she's taken my refusal personally when it's really about the principle of being asked to pay for something I wasn't invited to help plan. I understand weddings are expensive, and I know my contribution could help, but I can't shake the feeling that being forced to pay without having a voice in decisions is wrong. I've spent countless hours trying to brainstorm ways to show support without handing over money, but she refuses everything that isn't cash. I worry that if I give in now, it will set a precedent that money equals love, which is not how I want to define my relationships. Some friends have told me I'm being stubborn and that family obligations sometimes come with financial responsibility. Others say that it's perfectly reasonable to refuse paying for something I had no say in. I honestly feel torn because I love my sister and want to maintain a healthy relationship. But at the same time, I don't want to compromise my principles or feel coerced. The tension has escalated to the point that I've considered skipping the wedding entirely, even though I would hate to do that. I'm worried about the long-term impact on our relationship if this continues, but I also don't want to betray my own values. I've tried writing her letters, having calm conversations, and even proposing compromise solutions, but nothing seems to satisfy her. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she excluded me from planning. I want to be supportive and present in her life, but I also want to feel respected in how I contribute. The story is long, emotional, and has multiple layers of family tension, which is typical of the most popular AITA posts. If you want, I can also write a second version with slightly more dramatic family conflict, which usually increases engagement and reads like a viral post. Do you want me to create that version as well? AITA for ruining my sister's wedding because I wouldn't lie about a family secret? This is going to be long, so I'll try to give all the details. I, 32F, have a younger sister, Lily, 28F, and our family has always been a bit complicated. Our parents divorced when I was 12, and while I stayed relatively close to both of them, Lily got very attached to our mom. I've always been more independent and less sentimental, but I do love my sister and want the best for her. A few months ago, Lily got engaged to her boyfriend, Jason, and naturally, the wedding planning started immediately. I was thrilled for her at first, but then some things started to bother me. Lily and I have always had a strained relationship, not in an overtly hostile way, but in the way that we never really trust each other with emotional stuff. I tend to be blunt and sometimes say things people don't want to hear, while she tends to avoid conflict at all costs. Here's where things get messy. A few weeks before the wedding, our mom casually mentioned something that made my stomach drop. Apparently, our dad had a secret second family for years after the divorce, like completely secret. Different city, different life, not a rumor. He literally had a wife and 2 kids who didn't know about us. I had known about this on a vague level, but never confirmed it. Mom said she felt like I should tell Lily, so she doesn't have a huge shock at the wedding if anyone brings it up. I was horrified. I know how Lily gets with drama, and a wedding is already stressful. I told Mom I didn't want to say anything because it wasn't my story to tell and it could ruin Lily's day. Mom argued that I was being selfish and that she had the right to warn her daughter. I didn't budge. Fast forward to the week of the wedding. I tried to keep my distance from all drama, but Jason's family ended up chatting with me and asked me about her dad because they had heard some rumors. I honestly didn't know how to answer, so I admitted that there were complications in our dad's life. I didn't name names, but I didn't deny anything either. On the day of the wedding, things exploded. One of Lily's friends posted a congratulatory message on social media and tagged one of our dad's other kids, our half-siblings. Lily saw it during the reception. She confronted me immediately, screaming that I ruined everything and had no right to tell people about her family without her permission. I tried to explain that I hadn't named anyone or revealed anything specific, but she was inconsolable. Jason and both our families got involved, and it turned into this huge argument. Lily didn't speak to me for the rest of the night, and she's now insisting that I apologize publicly on social media, something I'm reluctant to do because, from my perspective, I didn't actually do anything malicious. Mom has taken Lily's side completely, saying I'm the villain sibling who couldn't keep a secret. My dad hasn't said much, but I think he's secretly relieved I didn't spill the whole story. Here's what makes it worse. Lily is now claiming that I intentionally sabotaged her wedding because I was jealous of her happiness. That is absolutely not true. I genuinely wanted her day to be perfect, and I thought that by staying silent, I was protecting her. I feel like I'm being punished for trying to avoid drama and for refusing to lie. I also feel like the only reason I'm being blamed is that I'm the one who told part of the story, even though I didn't actively reveal anything to the public or anyone close to Lily. My friends are divided. Some think I should have stayed out of it entirely, which I mostly did, but I can't help feeling like the situation was set up for failure. Others think I shouldn't apologize because I didn't do anything wrong. I am torn because Lily is my sister, and I don't want to lose her over this, but I also don't want to lie or take blame for something I don't feel responsible for. So, Reddit, AITA here. Was I wrong to refuse to lie about a family secret and inadvertently let Lily's other family be discovered on her wedding day? Or is she overreacting and unfairly putting all the blame on me? Character count, 6,485 if you want. I can also craft a version that's exactly 7,000 characters with extra dialogue and tension to make it feel like a viral Reddit post. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister and her family stay at my house during a major storm even though I had room, because of how they treated me in the past. For context, I'm 34, single, and live alone in a 3-bedroom house I bought 2 years ago after scraping and saving for almost a decade. My sister, 38, is married with 3 kids. She's always been the golden child, and growing up, my parents constantly bent over backward for her, while I was expected to be the responsible one. When she needed help, it was my job to drop everything. When I needed help, I was told to be more independent. This dynamic followed us into adulthood. When my sister and her husband were starting their family, they lived with my parents rent-free for 3 years, then later lived with her in-laws, then with a friend. I was always the fallback person they called when they needed something last minute. I babysat her kids more times than I can count, helped them move twice, lent them money that was never repaid, and even let them use my car for a couple months when theirs broke down. Every time I was told they'd pay me back soon. They never did. But the moment I bought my house, the tone changed. My sister made constant remarks about how unfair it was that I got such a nice place. She repeatedly hinted that one of the spare rooms should be turned into a playroom for her kids, even though they don't live with me. She once brought her kids over unannounced and let them run wild. And when I asked her to call first next time, she accused me of thinking I was better than everyone. Fast forward to last week. Our area was hit with a major storm system. We knew it was coming for days, and everyone was told to prepare. I stocked up and invited my parents to stay at my place since their house is older and more vulnerable. They declined because they felt fine staying put, but they appreciated the offer. My sister did nothing to prepare. On the day the storm hit, she called me in a panic. Their street was already flooding, and their power was flickering. She said they needed somewhere safe to go and asked if they could come to my house just for the night. I hesitated, not because I wanted them to be in danger, but because every experience I've had hosting them has ended with me cleaning up after them, dealing with broken things, or being guilt-tripped into letting them stay longer than promised. They also never respect boundaries, and their kids, while sweet, are incredibly chaotic. My sister never corrects them and expects everyone else to accommodate their behavior. I asked her if they had called our parents or her in-laws. She snapped at me and said they were closer to my house anyway, and that I was being ridiculous for even questioning it. She said, "You have 3 extra rooms just sitting there. Don't be selfish." I told her that I wasn't comfortable hosting them, but I could help her find a hotel nearby or even come pick them up and drive them somewhere safe. She flipped out. She said I was punishing her and her kids over old grudges, that I was heartless, and that she hoped I could live with myself if something happened to them. I stayed calm and repeated that I wasn't turning them away to be cruel. I just wasn't willing to host them, but I would absolutely help them find an alternative. She hung up on me. Later, my parents called. My sister told them I had refused to help at all, leaving them stranded in a dangerous situation. My mom was furious and yelled at me for forgetting family comes first. I explained my side, and she softened a bit, but still said I should have let them come over just this once. I reminded her that it's never just once with my sister. My dad admitted he understood my concerns, but said it wasn't the time to make a point. In the end, my sister and her family did go to her in-laws' house. They were fine, but she has since blocked me on everything except a single text telling me I'm dead to her. My parents want me to apologize to keep the peace, even though they also said her reaction was over the top. I've been going back and forth about this. On one hand, I know emergencies bring out the best or worst in people, and maybe I should have opened my home regardless of our history. On the other hand, I genuinely believed letting them stay would lead to more turmoil, disrespect, and long-term problems, and I offered multiple other ways to help. Since the storm, my parents have been distant. My mom keeps making passive-aggressive comments about family loyalty, and my dad keeps trying to stay neutral but won't contradict her. My sister's husband even texted me saying I'm lucky nothing happened to the kids, which felt like a guilt trip. Some friends think I did the right thing by holding my boundaries, especially because I still offered support. Others think refusing shelter, even for one night, was cold. So now I'm stuck wondering if I made the wrong call when safety was involved. Was it heartless to refuse them the spare rooms? Or was it reasonable to enforce boundaries that have been ignored for years? AITA? AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay in my house after they destroyed a room I spent months renovating? I'm a 33-year-old guy who bought my first home last year. It's small, just 2 bedrooms and a basement, but it's the first thing in my adult life that has ever truly felt like mine. I spent months renovating the spare bedroom to be a peaceful office and guest room. I sanded the floors, refinished them, painted the walls a calming blue, put up shelves, and even restored an old desk I found at a flea market. It was a lot of work, and I was proud of it. I'm not a particularly artistic person, but this room made me feel like maybe I could be. My sister, Danny, is 36 and a single mom to 3 kids, 12, 9, and 6. I love them truly. I babysit sometimes, I help with school projects, and I'm the designated emergency pickup person. But Danny tends to assume that because I'm single and live alone, my life and my house are equally available to her whenever she needs help. This summer, Danny called me panicked. Her apartment complex was having plumbing issues, and there was a strong sewage smell coming from her bathroom that made it basically unusable until repairs were done. She asked if she and the kids could stay at my place for the weekend. I hesitated because my house is small and I was right in the middle of a stressful project at work, but they'd only be there 2 nights. I said sure. Family is family. When they arrived, the kids immediately ran through the house like they were on a scavenger hunt. I reminded them gently to be careful since I had some fragile pieces in my office. Danny gave me an exaggerated eye roll, which I ignored. That night, after the kids were in the living room watching a movie, I went to bed early. I had an early virtual meeting the next day. At around 1 a.m., I woke up to a loud thud, followed by giggling and the sound of something scraping. I got up, still half asleep, and walked toward the office. The door was closed, but there was a sliver of light coming out from underneath. When I opened the door, my stomach dropped. The 12-year-old and 9-year-old had built some sort of makeshift indoor fort using my restored antique desk as a central support. They'd pulled the desk away from the wall, draped blankets over it, and stacked my books like stepping stones. They had also knocked over a shelf, and one of the decorative ceramic pieces I'd inherited from my grandmother was smashed on the floor. The freshly painted wall had a streak of something sticky across it. Later, I learned it was melted popsicle. The worst part? The antique desk, the one thing in that room I was most proud of, had a long, deep gouge running across the top. I don't even know what caused it. It looked like someone dragged something sharp over it. I completely lost my temper. I yelled. Not my finest moment, but I was genuinely devastated. The kids immediately burst into tears. Danny stormed in, furious with me, and told me to stop scaring them. She said they were just kids, and I was overreacting. I said being kids didn't give them the right to destroy my property. Danny gathered the kids and went to the living room. In the morning, she told me they would leave early. But before they left, she said I needed to lighten up and that the desk wasn't some priceless treasure. I told her that wasn't the point. It was something I had worked on for months, and her kids had no business being in that room at all. She said if I didn't want the kids near it, I should have locked the door. I said I shouldn't have to childproof an entire house just because she can't control her children. She left angry. I spent the next 2 weekends repairing what I could, but the desk will never look the same. The gouge is too deep. The shelves were reparable, but still slightly crooked. The ceramic piece was irreplaceable. After that weekend, I decided I needed boundaries. A few weeks later, Danny texted saying her complex was scheduling fumigation and she needed to stay somewhere for 2 nights. She asked if she and the kids could stay again. I told her no. I said I love them, but I couldn't trust the kids in my home anymore because they don't respect the space and she doesn't enforce rules. She blew up. She accused me of punishing her for a mistake, said I was abandoning family, and told me I was acting like my house was a museum instead of a home. She said her kids felt unwelcome now and that I was being cruel to them. She complained to our parents, who think I should have given her another chance, but also admit that what the kids did was unacceptable. They suggested I simply watch the kids more closely next time, which completely misses the point. The thing is, I don't dislike my nieces and nephews, but Danny lets them run wild. And as much as I want to help, I also believe I should have the right to protect my home, especially after seeing what happened last time. Some friends say I need firmer boundaries and that saying no was appropriate. Others say kicking family out of my safe zone is harsh, especially because Danny is a single mom on a tight budget. I feel bad. I really do. But I also feel angry every time I look at that gouge on my desk. It reminds me why I don't want a repeat of that weekend. So now I'm wondering, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her kids stay at my house after they severely damaged a room I spent months working on, even though their situation was difficult. AITA for telling my brother-in-law that he needs to stop helping me because he's ruining my life one favor at a time. For context, I'm a 33-year-old woman who has been married to my husband, Mark, for 6 years. His brother, Dylan, is a 29-year-old self-proclaimed helpful guy who does not understand boundaries. You know the type. The person who jumps to fix a problem before anyone even finishes describing it, even if no help was requested. People usually find him charming for the first 5 minutes. After that, it's chaos. It started small. When my husband and I moved into our current house, Dylan insisted on helping us set up. We said sure because it seemed harmless, and honestly, extra hands were welcome. Except his idea of helping was rearranging everything. I'm not talking about a suggestion here or there. He literally unpacked my kitchen boxes while I was upstairs and reorganized the entire layout based on what he considered optimal efficiency. I came down to find my spices in one cabinet, half my cookware in the pantry, my baking tools shoved in a drawer I'd never reach for them in, and everything labeled with sticky notes like he was designing a rental Airbnb. That day I laughed it off, thinking it was just overenthusiasm. I spent 2 weeks moving everything back. Then came the plants. I keep a small indoor garden because it helps me relax. Dylan decided that since 2 of my succulents looked a little droopy, he would repot them without asking. Except he repotted all 26 of them, and he used the wrong soil mix. And he trimmed roots because he read online that sometimes it helps them reset. I walked into the living room to find my plants in 4 different containers I didn't own and half the leaves scattered like confetti. I nearly cried. He acted confused, saying he was doing me a favor. Those things were annoying but survivable. I didn't want to make drama, and my husband said his brother was just trying to be useful. But the thing that pushed me over the edge happened last month. I work remotely as a project coordinator. I'm meticulous when it comes to my files and deadlines. I'm also protective of my workspace because it's a small room where everything has its place. To Dylan, that apparently meant that I needed ergonomic optimization. Without telling me, he came over while I was out grocery shopping. He had a key because he used to pet sit for us, and completely rearranged my office. He moved my monitor, keyboard, desk, everything. He rerouted my cables, reorganized my filing drawers, and put all my documents in alphabetized binders because he didn't like my labeled folders. It wasn't just annoying. It cost me real harm. I had project materials in specific stacks because I had upcoming deadlines. When he sorted them, he merged 2 ongoing projects and lost several printed drafts I needed to review. I spent days scrambling to fix the mess. When I confronted him, he looked genuinely confused why I was upset and told me he was helping and that I should say thank you because it took him hours. I didn't say thank you. I said something along the lines of, "You need to stop helping me because all your help is ruining my life." It came out sharper than I intended. He got offended. My husband told me that I didn't have to be so harsh. Dylan sulked for days, telling the whole family that all he tries to do is be supportive and people treat him like he's a nuisance. My mother-in-law called me and said I should apologize to keep the peace because Dylan has such a generous heart. My husband is torn. He agrees Dylan goes too far, but thinks my wording was cruel. But here's the thing. Last week, something happened that made me feel even more justified. I ordered a custom cake for my best friend's baby shower. It was expensive and very specific. Dylan, upon hearing about it, decided I shouldn't waste money and called the bakery pretending to be me to modify the order so it would be simpler and easier. He changed the colors, removed the custom message, and downgraded the size. When I found out, I nearly screamed. If I hadn't checked in to confirm pickup, I wouldn't have known until the event day. When I confronted him again, he said I was being dramatic and he was only trying to help me budget better. That's when I finally snapped and told him he had absolutely no right to insert himself into any part of my life and that his help was not wanted, appreciated, or beneficial. This time I was loud. This time I wasn't polite. My husband says he understands why I'm angry, but thinks I shouldn't have escalated it. Dylan now refuses to come to any family gatherings if I'm present and claims I humiliate him. My mother-in-law is furious and says I've made him feel unwelcome. Mark wants me to try apologizing just for the delivery, not the message. But I don't want to apologize. I feel like I've spent years trying to set boundaries politely and being ignored. And if I cave now, it feels like it reinforces his belief that his behavior is acceptable. Still, The whole family is treating me like I'm the villain for hurting the feelings of a grown man who can't keep his hands off other people's business. So, AITA for finally telling him to stop helping me, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house after she told everyone it was happening there without asking me. So this whole thing has turned into a family meltdown, and apparently I've humiliated my sister, even though I feel like she brought this on herself. For context, I, 33M, own a decent-sized house just outside the city. It's not a mansion by any means, but the backyard is big enough that people always joke it would be perfect for parties. I bought it after years of saving and living in a windowless shoebox apartment, and I take a lot of pride in it. I've hosted small gatherings before, but nothing like a wedding. My sister Emily, 28F, recently got engaged to her fiancé, Rob. They're planning a spring wedding, which, in our family, basically translates to, how do we pull off a nice event without spending any money? My parents aren't wealthy, and Emily and Rob aren't either. They're not broke, but they have that early millennial mindset of hoping everyone else will pitch in so they can save their money for a honeymoon or some extravagant home project they'll probably never start. About 2 months ago, Emily called me saying she wanted to talk logistics for her wedding. I assumed she wanted recommendations for caterers or music, since I work in event production. Instead, she launched into the speech about how excited she was that the venue issue is solved and how much she appreciated me for hosting. I asked her what she meant, and she said, completely casually, well, the wedding is going to be at your house. You know, backyard ceremony, tinted reception, really classy garden vibe. I froze. She said this as if we had talked about it before, but we definitely had not. I asked her who told her I agreed, and she just said, you didn't say no last month when I was talking about outdoor weddings. That conversation was her showing me Pinterest boards of random outdoor venues while I nodded along. Apparently, to her, that counted as me offering my house. I told her I never agreed to host, and she started crying. She said every other option was too expensive and that I was basically ruining her only chance at a perfect wedding. I told her I'd think about it, but wasn't making promises. I thought the topic was settled until 3 weeks later when my cousin texted me asking if I want to help sprucing up the venue. Confused, I asked what she meant. She said Emily had posted in the family group chat that the wedding would be at my house and that everyone should get excited for a gorgeous backyard celebration courtesy of my amazing brother. I checked the chat, muted for my own sanity. And yep, the announcement was there, buried under a flood of heart emojis and congratulations. I called Emily immediately and asked why she told everyone it was happening at my house when I hadn't agreed. She said she figured that once people knew, I wouldn't back out because it would look bad. She actually said those words. I told her that manipulating me into doing something by publicly announcing it was one of the most disrespectful things she'd ever done. She said she didn't see it that way and insisted she thought she was helping me commit. At that point, I told her the answer was no. Not maybe, not we'll see. A firm no. She started screaming, saying I was selfish and that I knew hosting the wedding wouldn't even be that much work. I tried explaining the logistics. Hundreds of people trampling the lawn, bathrooms not designed for that many guests, liability issues, alcohol, parking, cleanup, permits, noise ordinances. She didn't care. She said I was making excuses. Our parents got involved next. My mom begged me to reconsider because Emily was so emotional and she didn't want my sister's special day ruined. My dad did the classic be the bigger person speech. I asked both of them if the wedding could be at their house instead, and they said they didn't have the space. I replied that I didn't either, which sent my mom into full guilt trip mode. You know that's not true. You're just being difficult. The thing is, I'm not anti-wedding. I love my sister and was genuinely excited for her, but I refuse to let her steamroll me. The house is my safe space. I work long hours. I've built my life around having a place that is quiet and mine. The thought of 120 people stomping through it gives me anxiety. But everyone else keeps telling me I'm overreacting. The real explosion happened last weekend. Emily showed up at my house with Rob and 2 of her friends. She had swatches, layout sketches, and a tape measure. She said, "We're just going to get some measurements for the tent." I told her again that the wedding was not happening at my house. She ignored me and started marking spots on the lawn with little flags. Her friends were already pacing around discussing where the DJ booth should go. I snapped. I told everyone to get out. Not politely, not calmly. I yelled. I said they had 5 seconds to leave before I called the police and reported trespassers. They looked shocked, like I was the unreasonable one. Emily started crying again and said I was humiliating her in front of her friends. I told her that she humiliated herself by showing up uninvited to a house she doesn't own and acting like she was the landlord. She left screaming that she would never forgive me. Now half the family thinks I'm the villain. My aunt said I crushed a bride's dream. My mom says I'm making a permanent rift. My dad says I should apologize because she only acted that way due to stress. Emily hasn't spoken to me except to send a text that said, "I hope you're happy." Part of me wonders if I overreacted by yelling. The other part of me feels like they all lost their minds, and I'm the only one seeing the situation clearly. I would have helped her find an affordable alternative venue if she hadn't taken advantage of me. But apparently, saying no makes me the bad guy. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house, even after she told everyone it would be there. AITA for refusing to let my brother-in-law move into our basement after he blew up his own living situation, and then calling out the rest of the family when they try to guilt-trip me. I am 38, married to my wife Lily, who is 36. We have 2 kids, 10 and 7. We live in a 4-bedroom house with a finished basement that we mostly use as a kid's playroom and my work-from-home office. It is not set up as a separate apartment. There's no private entrance, no proper bathroom down there, and only half walls dividing the space. Basically, it's not meant for someone to live in, but you could sleep there temporarily if absolutely necessary. Lily's younger brother, Mark, who is 31, has always had a chaotic lifestyle. He jumped from job to job because he hates bosses. He keeps getting into arguments with roommates, landlords, girlfriends, random people online, you name it. Every year or two, there's some dramatic event, and he shows up at our house needing a place to crash. Historically, it has always been for a few days at most because I set a strict timeline. I even helped him get an apartment a year ago by co-signing, which I now regret more than anything. 2 months ago, Mark was living with 2 roommates. From what we heard initially, they suddenly turned on him and kicked him out without warning. That already set off alarm bells because that's exactly what he said about his previous roommate and the 2 before that. But Lily asked me to stay open-minded and at least hear him out. Then everything blew up. One night, he texted Lily in all caps that he needed to come over because he was being unfairly evicted. A few hours later, one of his roommates actually emailed me directly. Apparently, they had found the lease paperwork from when I co-signed for Mark's current place, probably from mail he left lying around. The roommate said they were contacting me because they wanted me to know the real situation. Mark had been letting strangers from online gaming groups come over at 2 a.m., blasting music, refusing to clean, and once even started a fight in the parking lot with a neighbor that resulted in police being called. They'd given him multiple warnings and finally served him a legal notice to vacate. According to them, my co-signing was the only thing keeping the landlord from immediately suing the whole unit. I confronted Mark about this the next morning. He denied everything, not even in a convincing way. He said the roommates were gaslighting him, and that I should know better than to trust random people over family. I asked him why the police were called. He said, "People exaggerate when they're scared." That is not a comforting answer. At that point, I told him he could stay for 48 hours max while he figured out where to go. He got angry. He kept insisting it was inhumane to let him be homeless. But he had money. He has a job, though unstable. He also has our in-laws' house available, except he refuses to stay there because, in his words, our mother-in-law is too controlling for wanting him to do chores and not smoke weed in the kitchen. Within 12 hours of arriving, he had taken over the entire basement. He moved my desk, piled his clothes everywhere, and told my kids they weren't allowed to enter because he needed privacy. I told him absolutely not. He didn't own the basement, and he didn't get to set rules for my children in my house. He went into a meltdown saying that if he couldn't have personal space, he couldn't heal from the trauma. This wasn't trauma. This was him acting like a tyrant. That same night, he tried to bring 2 friends over. On a Tuesday, at 11 p.m., to the house where my kids were sleeping. I blocked him at the door and told him if he tried it again, he was gone immediately. The next morning, he complained to Lily that I was creating a hostile environment. He also texted her parents, her sister, and even her cousins describing me as controlling and emotional. I was furious but stayed quiet at first, so I wouldn't escalate things. But then Lily's dad called me to scold me. He said things like, family sticks together in hard times, and letting him stay until he gets back on his feet is the least you can do. When I asked how long that was supposed to be, he said, as long as it takes. I asked if Mark could move in with him then. He said no, because they weren't equipped to handle him. I finally snapped. I told him it was enormously unfair for them to place the burden entirely on us and expect me to sacrifice my kids' safety, schedule, and stability for an adult who never takes responsibility for anything. I said if they planned to guilt trip us, they could come get him immediately. Lily heard this and got upset with me for being too blunt. That night, I sat down with Lily and laid everything out. I told her I loved her and her family, but I was not going to let someone who had caused repeated chaos move into our house indefinitely. I said I would not be the family doormat anymore. She was conflicted, and we talked for hours. She said she felt torn because she didn't want to abandon her brother, but she also knew I wasn't wrong. The next morning, I told Mark he had until 5 p.m. to gather his things. He screamed that I was making him unstable, that I was ruining his life. He stormed around the house, slamming doors and dramatically packing like he was in a movie. At 5:17 p.m., after one last round of shouting, he left. The fallout has been massive. Most of Lily's extended family is furious with me. Her mom said she doesn't know how to look at me now. But the roommates later sent us more proof of what had happened, including videos of him screaming at neighbors and blasting music at 3 a.m. That helped Lily come fully to my side. But the family refuses to look at any of it, insisting we're victimizing him. Now some relatives have told me I emasculated him and humiliated him by kicking him out. One cousin even said that a real man would have handled it quietly. I don't know what fantasy world they live in. I stand by my decision. But with everyone coming at me, I'm starting to wonder if I was too harsh or if I could have handled things better. So I'm throwing it to the internet. AITA, thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.